Welcome to Dialogue Editing for Motion Pictures. The last video focused on what you must get from the picture editor in order for your job to go smoothly. Now we will see just what to do when the materials arrive.
You just got the OMF. What do? You start cutting? No, not quite. I know you want to cut. You're behind schedule, the deadline is looming, you're ready to go, you've been waiting for 2 weeks while this picture is supposed to be coming. No, don't start cutting yet. If you invest a couple of days at the beginning of the project into getting everything nice, it will absolutely pay off right off the bat. So what do you need to do? Well, one thing I do when I get started is I take the OMF and I make a copy of it. I put the OMF down at the bottom, as you see in this slide, and I copy it up into my dialogue tracks. Now, in this little tiny make-believe model, I have tracks A through J, which is never enough. I usually go like A through M, A through N, something like that. But, you know, it fits on one page, so it looks good. It's something I lifted out of my book, so it fits on a page nice. So there's A through J. At the top, there's merely a copy of the OMF. Why? Why bother? If you have a copy of the OMF, it can help you in a number of ways. Mostly it's there to protect you from your own stupidity. And when I say your stupidity, I really mean my stupidity, because I always make catastrophic mistakes because I get tired or I get lazy or it's after lunch and I'm dumb. So let's say, for example, you delete a region. It's right there. You go back to the OMF, pop it up. You still have to re-edit that region, but it's not the end of the world. More importantly, let's say that you knock a track out of sync because you're rippling your track in the shuffle mode, and poof, you lose the sync. And this is long past when you can do undo. You've got to go, what do I do? Well, you can move the same track or the same region from your OMF right below the track in question, and then you have a visual marker. All you got to do is line up these visual markers, and boom, you're in sync again. It's just good to have there. It costs you nothing. Tracks come free these days. It's good to do. Then you can hide it. You never see it. It's fine. The other thing that you'll see in this image is at the top there's a track called GT. That's guide track. That is in this case, it's a strip from the videotape from the picture edit. If I get the picture editor's cut on, let's say, Betacam, I'll just record the Betacam tracks into my session. If I get a QuickTime program, a QuickTime file, I'll just strip it off and here it is. What's the point? The guide track is really useful because it contains the final mix from the editor, from the picture editor, which means this is what the director fantasizes about what the movie should sound like. It contains not only the production sound, but also the temporary music, temporary sound effects, a little mix action. So it kind of gives you an idea of the flow of the film. It's very handy if, for example, you're working on a scene and when you're cutting the dialogue, you're following all the rules, but it's just not making any sense. By looking at the guide track, you can see, oh yeah, they lowered the dialogue here and they brought up the music, and I see, that's what he's thinking. Or you could look at a scene and see, you think that the focus of the scene should be on this character, but the director thought the focus should be here. So by looking at the guide track, you can kind of rearrange your cut so the focus of the scene is what the director wanted. Handy thing to have. Something else, another bit of kind of housekeeping you need to deal with when you first get started is to go through your tracks and to determine what is dual mono, meaning if you have a stereo pair and both tracks have the same thing, that's called a dual mono. Other tracks, you have two tracks and there's different material. That's not dual mono. Why should you care? Well, first of all, why does it happen? Back when people recorded directly to two-track sources or two-track recording media like DAT, it was very common for the sound recordist, if it was a mono boom shot with no other material, to put both tracks, to put the same material on both channels, just as a safety, or really it was more of a habit. But then if there was a shot where you had a boom on one channel and let's say two radio mics mixed together, that'd be on the other channel. Some people still do that, some people don't. But if you run into dual mono, get rid of one side or the other. The fastest way to do that is not to look at all the channels and see, yep, they look the same, or listen and go, yeah, they sound the same, because you'll go nuts. It'll wear you out, and that's like getting worn out over something that's dumb. You know, get worn out over something good. Don't get worn out over something bad. It's like, if you like loud music, okay, lose your hearing over your favorite rock and roll. But don't lose your hearing because you're standing next to the bus stop and the bus's brakes are whining and you don't have the sense to cover your ears. You know, pick what you're going to lose your hearing over. Anyway, the fastest way to get rid of dual monos, or to determine, is to put a zero latency plug-in on one of the channels, flip the phase, and just play them. If they're the same, they're going to phase cancel. Then you can delete one side or the other. If they're not the same, you'll hear them both. There'll be no change. Don't do anything. Don't listen, oh, this is a better mic. Oh, this doesn't sound as good. No, don't do it. At this point, you don't know enough about the scene to know if you can lose one channel or the other. So all you're doing at this point is dual channel, yes, delete one. Not dual channel, oh, don't do anything. Next, something else that's very useful before you get started is to mark the scene boundaries. Where does a scene start? Scenes are sort of the basic organizational building block of a film. It's how films are organized. A scene is a little story within a film. It could be defined by location. So you cut from, we're in a studio here, you could cut from this studio to outside, and you see John outside. That's a scene change. There could also be time-defined scene changes. It's day. Boom, it's night. Probably that's a different scene, even though you haven't changed locations. And there's a few other reasons you might define a scene change. But the script is organized by scene, the shoot is organized by scene. It's good to be organized by scene. So what I do is I simply go through the film and I find where all the scene changes are, and I mark them and I label them, scene number, whatever, a brief description. It also makes it handy when you're screening the film later. Let's say you and the director want to focus on the scene where Godzilla comes out of the water and eats Tokyo. So, you know, you go, oh yeah, that's scene 666. And you see, oh yes, Godzilla eats Tokyo. So you press it and boom, there you are. It's a good way to work. The other reason it's important is that usually the dialogue editor is the first editor on scene, except for the supervising sound editor, because, you know, we usually get started a little bit earlier. The other editors really like to get your scene markers. So if you make your markers, just describe all the scenes, and then just export those to everybody else, to the background person, the Foley person, the effects person, the music person, then everybody agrees on where the scene changes are. And they can use your markers to, let's say, the backgrounds, to whoop, cut off the backgrounds there, so we're all agreed upon where does this scene change, so your background changes are nice and solid rather than blah, 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 blah. So you got to mark these things.
We've begun to look at the things you must do before you can start editing. By taking a bit of time to copy the OMF tracks, import the picture editor's guide track, eliminate dual mono regions, and mark the beginning of scenes, you will save time and reduce stress while you edit. As we'll see in the next video, there are a few more organizational tasks before you can really get to work. Thank you for watching Dialogue Editing for Motion Pictures, a guide to the invisible art. This series is produced by the Sela Yaniv Sound School. Dialogue Editing for Motion Pictures, a guide to the invisible art, is available from Amazon and other online booksellers.